Today on CityCast Boise, whether you're feeling deflated by the recent election results or they've inspired you to take action, there are plenty of ways to channel that energy into positive change. We're exploring how you can get involved to make our city a better place, because sometimes the best way to move forward is to start right where you are. It's Tuesday, November 19th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is our Hey Boise newsletter editor, Blake Hunter, and I invited them on because they are just so dialed into everything that's happening in Boise. So thank you for joining me today, Blake.
Hey, Lindsay. Thanks for having me.
The inspiration for this episode came after this recent election. I've gotten lots of messages from people who are looking to get more involved locally. And so far, they seem to fall into the categories of people who got a taste for political involvement. Either this was their first time voting, or they were really engaged in a way they hadn't been previously, and they want to dive deeper. And people who are either concerned about the election results or looking for ways to support our community, or, people who want to focus more on local causes where they can have more of an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that local's where it's at, and that's what we're always going to hit. So I've definitely felt that. I felt a lot of people feeling various levels of maybe triumph based on the election results, to which I say, okay, that's fine. Now, lock in with the rest of us and really dig in and start making changes in your community that you want to see. Whenever there's times of big political news and big political changes, everyone starts asking what their role is. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. So I think that I'm glad that we're having this conversation to kind of hopefully direct some of that energy and turn it into habits, because that's what really makes change. Is not really, it's not always fire. It's not always passion. It's really habits and people doing little things over and over again.
Yes, absolutely. And taking that energy, I know I'm not alone in doom scrolling or, feeling like I want to escape a little bit, and instead maybe turning those feelings and maybe away from apathy or disconnecting to, let's show up for our community. Because even if we can't control what's happening on the national stage, we can show up for people that it will matter for, our neighbors, our friends, the people in our community who will be impacted by the new president-elect's policies. So what are some of the most pressing issues in Boise that you feel need more community support?
As we head into the winter months, it just gets really dangerous to have to be living outside, even more so than it is, when things are temperate and when the weather is somewhat friendly. But yeah, just seeing temperatures dip below freezing, it just means, it's just so hazardous. And I think that every winter, we need to kind of look in the mirror and figure out what our role is in helping people stay safe on the streets and hopefully get off the streets if we're able to do that, which we are. We have the capacity to make it so that no one has to sleep outside unhoused at night in Boise. I think another one is, of course, abortion care, and that overlaps a lot with just a lot of gender care in general, and specifically, efforts to stop gender-based violence. And then another big thing, which we know that Idaho really responds to this as a national talking point, is immigration, something that we all need to be concerned about as Idahoans is deportation, and specifically mass deportation, because, the president-elect Trump has said that is going to be a huge focus of his in his first year. And we need to figure out how to organize around that and how to take care of people in our community, because undocumented folks are part of our communities, whether we want to admit that or not.
And what organizations or nonprofits are currently working to address those needs? I mean, I know a lot of people are looking to get involved. I've had different friends talk about, I want to start an organization for this. I want to start a nonprofit. And I think there already are organizations. That's not wrong. I don't want to dissuade anyone, but there already are organizations, and sometimes funneling our effort into things that already exist is a better way to collectively help than, create 6 different organizations that are all competing now for these resources. So what organizations are already working to address those needs, and how can people get involved with them?
For the 4 things that I kind of mentioned right off the top, for abortion and just generally gender-based care, Idaho Abortion Rights is a really big group, or a really powerful group, I should say, in that they are a mutual aid and they provide lots of different abortion adjacent services kind of through a grassroots network for, kind of survival care. Boise Mutual Aid and Boise Kitchen Collective are two of my favorites for providing food and helping people kind of no strings attached. And the reason that I love those groups, again, is because I would love to see more mutual aid efforts just in Boise in general. But of course, there are more, there are nonprofits that actually kind of provide a bulk of the support and system for unhoused folks in Boise. And then for immigration, you have Poder of Idaho does a lot of stuff for them in its own way. Indigenous Idaho Alliance does as well.
Yeah.
What about you? Who's on your list?
Definitely, I want to echo Idaho abortion rights. I think a big issue is helping inform the public and make sure that people have access to information to make educated decisions regarding their health, regarding their sexual health and their sexuality. I also really like the Boise Period Project. They do a fantastic job of making sure that people have access to menstrual products. They have packing parties where they'll pack a collection of menstrual products together, and they make sure that these are distributed to the women's and children's centers, to homeless Idahoans, to make sure that they have access to hygienic menstrual products that they need. This is a need that people in our community have, and they, you can donate. They have, an Amazon wish list if you're busy, but looking for an easy way to help. I also really like Faces of Hope. And I know that they are always looking for hygiene products. They are always looking for new with tags clothes for women, for children, for people who have, potentially left their home in the middle of the night with the clothes on their back and now need access to clothes because they have to go to court, because they, just need clothes to survive. And especially with the cold weather coming. I know when people are starting to get involved or they're looking at these different organizations and might be like, I don't know how to help. I don't know, do I have the skill set to help? What are some ways that people could jump in and, or find out about these groups, find out ways that they could help?
What's been important for me in kind of redesigning how I think about this is like really approaching this from a relationship standpoint and think about it less as like, oh, I want to go volunteer for this group because I feel anxious and I need to get like a load off my chest kind of thing. And also I would say, you don't have to just look for these groups that we've mentioned. There are lots of ways to impact your community really at like the micro, like neighborhood level. So like your bar that you really like, or like a restaurant that you like, might be having some sort of drive. They might be having some sort of event that you volunteer for that's completely unrelated to any cause that you care about. But then it's just, this is how community works. You'll meet someone else there. You'll meet someone else. You'll hear about something else there, and it will lead you one step further. Keep making yourself available and keep willing to be part of a system, part of an ecosystem with its flaws and with the things that you want to see change within it.
And I would add to that, to echo what you're saying, be prepared to learn.
Yeah.
There is so much, like you said, there's this ripple effect where when you start getting involved, you find out about new groups, about new needs. Maybe you'll find something where you're like, I have a contact who could help with that. We are all interconnected. And we all have different resources available to us, different
skills,
abilities, different skills. And so when we start to get involved, you start to see, oh, I don't mind public speaking about this. I can go hang flyers. I have a business. I don't mind having a basket available with, information for people to find out more. There are so many ways to help. I think sometimes people worry about if they can't help in a very specific type of way that they can't get involved.
Also, I think that a lesson that has been very difficult and very humbling for me to learn personally is not being attached to this idea of charity, which I think is why I'm drawn to mutual aid, is because mutual aid is not charity. Mutual aid is giving with the only expectation being that if you need help later down the road, that your community will be behind you and your community will be able to provide whatever resources you need. And also just it's a confirmation in an act of a belief that like we have what we need. And I think that the idea of charity and kind of like, you know, almost like lording over a community or an organization and being like, oh, they need my help. It's not always that condescending, but that is the power dynamic that it sets up. And we need to work on figuring out how to stop doing that. And I think Boise's small enough. I think that a lot of the joy that I derive from living in Boise is the feeling that you really can make a difference like every single day. And it really feels like, I don't know, like if you spend like 2 or 3 months really focusing on something new, it very quickly becomes part of your life, and very quickly people start to associate you with that cause or with that effort. And I think that's a really magical thing about living here.
Absolutely. And I think, speaking for me personally, but I don't know that I'm alone in this, especially with things that have happened recently with the election, it is very easy for me to become despondent, to become, focus on it's hopeless. I can't change things right now. I
The
can't,
despair.
the
Yeah.
despair. Yeah, exactly. And so that sometimes is the easy option, to doom scroll and to despair.
Yeah.
And then look around and go, yeah, nothing is better. Nothing has changed. I think it is a much more radical perspective to choose to hope and to take that despair and say, no, I'm not going to let that become apathy. I'm going to let that motivate me to show up in the ways that I can. You're right. I really only have so much influence on what happens nationally. And even at the state legislature level, I only have so much impact, but I can show up for my neighbors. I can show up for, people in my mom group. I can show up for other communities in our city that desperately need help, especially going into winter, that choosing to be hopeful in the face of a lot of things that have happened is a personal goal of mine.
Yeah. That kind of gave me chills a little bit, because it reminds me of a conversation that you and I had very early when you got this job, was about, how you were like, okay, I love TikTok, but I need to spend more energy on positive things. So yeah, I love that you're feeling that now, even after the election. But I wanted to ask you, like, on kind of like the local, you talked about even on a more local level than something like the legislature. How do you recommend? I mean, the thing that pops out to me is like libraries right now, but how do you recommend, like, what are the ways that people at like kind of a local government level or even a neighborhood government level, you feel like people can get engaged?
Okay. I love this question. There's so many ways. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not sexy. It's not,
Yeah.
if you've watched Parks and Rec, it's Parks and Rec. You're about to jump into that
At
and
best,
be like, is this
honestly.
real?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it, that wasn't exaggeration on that show. That is
Yeah.
literally how it is. But like you said, on the most basic level, I would start going to your school board meetings, to
Yep.
your library trustee board meetings. If you're someone who feels like your vote didn't matter, your vote didn't count, you don't have a say, let me tell you what, you have so much say in the library board meetings. Very few people attend, and they are crucial. I don't know if people remember, but just a couple years ago, there was a very strong effort to completely dismantle the Meridian Library District. And it was very close to happening based on the complaints of approximately 24 citizens of Meridian. And so if we're talking about you want to have a strong power, library board meetings are the place. Nearly, about 20 people almost completely dismantled the library board there. And so that is a very effective way to affect change in your community. I mean, the same with your school districts.
Totally.
Very few people attend those meetings, but those are where curriculum decisions are being made. Those are where budget decisions are being made. Those are where they're deciding things that will impact your children and children in the community where you live. So it is going to have a real Parks and Rec feel to it, but that's why you need to go. That's
Yeah.
why you need to be there, even though it's not maybe as flashy as the national political scene.
Yeah, it's Parks and Rec meets Reddit. Yeah. I'm also thinking even like neighborhood association meetings, like
Yes,
decisions over like whether your HOA can have like allows lawns that are not grass changes the fabric of your community, and it changes ecologically and environmentally like the future of Boise. And so yeah, it's important to see yourself as part of this large fabric of this beautiful city that we love and beautiful community that we love. And I think that it's important to like really root down. And I think that with like I said at the beginning, like your friendship, your friend group is the place that you have the most political power. And I don't mean political power as like power over your friends, but like you have to be in community. Like if you don't know how to be in community with your friends and talk about like the difficult things and hold each other accountable, honestly, and help kind of contribute to a better city and a better community and a better life for each other, then how are we going to do that on a legislative level? Like, how are we going to do that on a governmental level? So it can seem like a very daunting task, but oftentimes it's as simple as, checking in on a friend who's not doing well and having them over for dinner. And like that doesn't seem
absolutely.
like a political action. And it's kind of the most impactful thing that you can do in your life.
Okay, Blake, do you have any other tips for people who are looking to get involved in the community or find out what is happening in the community?
Yeah, I think that really leveraging social media is actually a genuinely important part of this. And until you can kind of find those networks that you're really part of, I think that Instagram is actually, in my experience, like the place where a lot of these organizations are the most active. Maybe
Hmm.
some of them you can find on Facebook, but I do feel like Instagram is kind of the way that you'll see like the most updates, kind of like up to the minute kind of things. And then to toot my own horn a little bit, I mean, a lot of local media covers events and, opportunities like this. But I do this a lot in the Hey Boise newsletter. I talk a lot about like cool organizations that I admire and that I know our readers enjoy. We do a lot of like mutual aid updates. And actually, we just kind of recently made the decision to start including more like volunteer opportunities in our event section, because we know that a lot of our readers love our event section and also want to find volunteer like opportunities. So it makes sense to kind of combine those two things.
No,
So
I think I absolutely toot your horn. And I think that's perfect because it goes right to people's inbox. So you're not having to look. The links are there. And we're going to include links to some of our favorite organizations or groups that are going to be having drives soon, ways you can get involved here pretty quickly. So if you're looking for a list or wanting to start incorporating them into your social media, that is a great way to start. And Blake, thank you so much. I know that there's been a lot of energy around this topic.
yeah.
I know that, people have been feeling maybe a little discombobulated, and thank you for joining me. Hopefully this can bring some focus.
Yeah. Thank you for having this conversation.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend about this episode so they have some ideas about how to get involved too. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our Visitor's Guide to Boise, just in time to inspire your holiday guests. Catch you then.